everyone, how you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/entitled people, where in one of these stories, Karen calls the police on a 3-year-old. Oh my god. If you enjoy, remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below so the algorithm sees this. Now without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Evil stepmother wants my baby. Okay, for some background, I'm a female 29, and I live in Italy with my fiancé Marco, and our daughter, who is 5 months old, Willow. I moved to Italy after graduating medical school, where I met Marco, and now I'm a resident in one of the hospitals. My father is a crap dad, left my mum and me, and has been very inconsistent. He married Tammy when I was young, and she never liked me, and she was also never able to have kids. So when I gave birth to my mum's side of the family came over to visit and meet Willow and look after the both of us. Nothing from Dad or Tammy, so two in the area on holiday and wanted to meet Willow. She was getting a bit fussy and she combination fed latched on to me. Tammy says the breastfeeding will have to stop soon. I'm confused and asked her why. And she said it couldn't be kept up when Willow was with them. Now I'm even more confused and I ask what she is on about. She shows me photos of a baby room and says that we should split custody of Willow and not worry, and she has everything set up already. I just stare at her, but she carries on, claiming that the age gap between myself and Marco is unhealthy for a child to grow up with, saying it was obvious I needed help and she was happy to, and mostly that I was obviously more bothered about working than staying home with my baby, so I should just let her have Willow. But obviously she wasn't able to breastfeed, so we would have to stop that now. I tell her she can't be serious and think I'm giving her my baby. She tells me to calm down. She's not asking for full custody, but she could provide a much calmer and stabler home, and that I could always visit. She said it's what she deserves. Marco pushed everyone out and made sure Willow and I were all right. Since then, I've been getting really weirded out and been getting texts from my father saying I need to let Tammy prove herself as a good caregiver, and Tammy has been sending loads of photos of the nursery she has made. Just to add so people don't get confused, I'm in Italy. Tammy isn't. They had flown over here. Edit to answer some common questions. My dad isn't actually on my birth certificate, so I think that limits his grandparents' rights claim. My mom is our nominated guardian for Willow if anything happens to us. It's written in a will, and Willow goes to the daycare and the hospital we both work at. That's an insane lady. Oh my god. Karen called the police on a 3-year-old. Hey Reddit, so my neighbor is a complete Karen, which I have posted previously about. Anyways, I thought I might have gotten off on the wrong foot with this Karen. Not wanting to be the dickhead, I decided to speak with Karen's neighbor on the other side. I knock, explain who I am, and say, "Do you find that Karen can be difficult?" The nice neighbor laughed, rubbed his hands together, and said, "How long you got?" A few weeks ago, it was nice neighbor's 3-year-old child's birthday. As per the UK's COVID guidance, they invited one other household round to have a barbecue in their garden to celebrate. A few hours into the lunch, the police knock on the door. Karen had called the police on a 3-year-old. They had reports that a ruckus party was happening at this address and breaking COVID protocol. This explained the situation to the police, and the police apologized for any inconvenience. Over, right? Nope. Karen reported the family and their friends to the police again, stating she suspected child abuse. She basically stated that because the children were screeching and screaming, which was them playing with water pistols, and the parents were being drunk and disorderly, also nonsense by the way. Once again, when the police arrived, no nice neighbor saw red, but managed to keep it together. The police spoke to the kids, all happy and just confused to why the police keep showing up. They also spoke with all the adults sitting around outside with 2 beers and half bottle of wine between the four of them. Nice neighbor said he has so many stories like this, but is trying his best to avoid Karen at all costs, of fear of chewing her out. I still think the police should have done something to Karen, but I don't know the law. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law showed up to Christmas at my house when they knew they were unwelcome. I was trying to keep things to 2 posts, but I realized that while compiling everything that part 2 was just too dang long, so I've divided it into a part 3. For those who commented en masse to get cameras, I will when I can afford it. I'm still in financial recovery from buying a house last year, and as far as I know, good cameras need a decent computer to record to. And I don't have anything more than a 3-year-old laptop that runs Windows 10. Yes, I'm aware of doorbell cams. That'll be the first kind I get. For those who kept saying that I should have just gotten my brother and sister-in-law arrested, the only reason I didn't was because they are parents. Their kids need them, and if Dan was arrested, he'd likely lose his job. And without that, his family has no money. And sister-in-law has only months-old baby right now. Neither of them need to end up in jail. But you don't need jail for revenge. Police can help, yes, but I got payback without filing a police report. Would I be this merciful again? More than likely not. And they know it. I decided to wait on making an account and posting until the new year, just in case more stuff happened, and that it did. As previous readers know, my sister-in-law was making passive-aggressive posts on social media that were obviously directed at me, especially after sister-in-law had her 4th baby in November. She was posting the same repetitive nonsense over and over again. She just found semi-clever ways of rewording it. But she pretty much kept regurgitating that she was tired of living with my parents, that there isn't enough space. She needs her own house, blah, blah, blah. I know I sound dismissive, but live through what I have with these people, and you'd be ready to sarcastically play tiny violins in front of them, too. They're just that bad. And since I waited until January to make an account, more happened just like I thought. I stated before that I'd invited half the family for a Christmas Eve party at my house, and everyone I invited came over, even though it was a fairly long drive of around 3 to 4 hours for them, but they wanted to come and show me their support. I was praised by them a lot for how hard I'd worked to get a house on my own, and that they were sorry for everything I went through. I was asked why I didn't just take my camper and drive the 3 hours back to them, instead of living pretty much homeless for so long, and I had to sheepishly admit that I was very attached to living around here, and I had my best employment opportunities in this area. My hometown doesn't have a lot of great job opportunities in my field, if any at all, and I wanted to make my own way as much as I could. In answer, they overall accepted. We moved on to having a rather nice party, the best I'd ever been in years. Some relatives even bought CDs of great Christmas albums, and I have to say, the one my uncle bought of Ray Charles was my favorite. He sings Christmas songs like no one else I've heard. It was a grand and happy time. I felt like for once I could just forget my past issues and enjoy the moment. But, oh boy, I wouldn't be writing this if it had stayed that way. About 2 hours into the party, you knew who showed up. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law popped in, just trying to look all smiles. They didn't even knock. Just walked straight in my front door like they were meant to be there. I shut off the music and told them to leave immediately. They begged to stay and said they bought gifts. One of my uncles stood up and yelled at them before I got another chance to speak, and he said they don't deserve to be in my home or life after the shit they tried to pull months earlier. Narrator's note, the story before this was about OP being homeless, getting his own house, and his parents not helping him. And after he got his own home, his parents tried to steal the house from him for his brother's sake. So yeah, that's the context. Back to the story. And he was backed up by several other relatives. Mind you, this guy is my mother's brother, and he used to love her to pieces until he found out about the shit that went on between me and my parents. My grandparents, as old as they are, hurriedly got in between us and said to my parents that if they want to make amends with me, it's far too soon, and they've never been more disappointed in them than they were this past year. They've hidden their favoritism for my brother from prying eyes for a long time, but no one was fooled anymore, and they needed to make a serious effort to try and actually treat me like a son if they ever wanted to be in my life again. Then they turned to Dan and sister-in-law and said they've seen the repetitive nonsense sister-in-law keeps posting about. They're tired of it and to just let it go already. My house will not become their new home. Sister-in-law went back to her standard of crying and had a pity party about how she should be the one living here and not me. She plopped down in a chair to have a tantrum and say it wasn't fair I got this house to myself when I have no family of my own, and she has 4 kids that need more space, and she just wanted a better place to live in and feel like a real mom. It was petty of me, but I loudly pointed out that she sucks as a mother because she lets my mother do most of the parenting, while she sits on her butt all day drinking, playing on her phone, or going out and spending all of Dan's money, and she has the nerve to complain about it. I even joked that I'm surprised her baby doesn't get drunk from her breast milk since he drinks so much booze. That, I admit, went a bit too far as they got some stares. And sister-in-law demanded to know if I was calling her a bad mom. I said the evidence speaks for itself, and if she wanted to be able to afford to move out of my parents' house someday, then she needs to put her college degree to some use, get a job, and learn to save money. My mother already does most of the childcare for my brother's kids anyway, so she'd have plenty of time after her baby gets a little older. My brother's eldest kid, who's 7 years old, ran up to me and started kicking and screaming at me for yelling at his mom. And he kept at me about how his mom said that I was the bad guy who made her cry and didn't let them live there. And that's when my brother grabbed his son to pull him away. But the other relatives jumped back in, and this sort of turned into a family intervention against my sister-in-law and brother. She was crying. Her new baby was crying. Her kids were crying. Hell, even Dan was very nearly in tears from the verbal lashing he was being assaulted with. He ended up just sitting on the ottoman I keep shoes in by the front door, and looking like a complete wreck. He couldn't look anyone in the eye. He couldn't even say 2 words to me. Not with the whole house filled with angry people ready to judge him if he tried to let out his inner golden child again. And if they weren't there to get in his way, I bet this would have ended up like a repeat of when he tried to order me around to try and take my house months earlier. By this point, though, he'd been so thoroughly humiliated that his and my parents' reputation in the family was now completely destroyed because the masks were now all off them. Soon after, my parents, brother, and sister-in-law all left in defeat. The party resumed, and we all avoided speaking of what just happened for the rest of the evening. Since most of the adults had been drinking, everyone stayed the night in my house. I even let some of them sleep in the camper so there'd be enough space. I admit, it also makes a good guest home. My relatives all wanted a tour of my house, and they said they couldn't believe I'd been living in it for around 2 years. I got a lot of questions about it, like what summer and winter was like, and so on. I was up earlier than everyone else Christmas morning, and I had a fresh pot of coffee and some ibuprofen for those spiked eggnog hangovers a few of them had. I was complimented on being a way nicer host than my parents ever were, and we all agreed to do this again next Christmas. After Christmas, sister-in-law did finally stop making posts that were obvious digs at me, and deleted all the old ones as well. But shortly after the new year, she more recently made a new post complaining about how she tried to convince my parents to get a camper like I did, so it could be set up in the backyard, so Dan and his family could use the whole house as their family home. Well, a taste of one's own medicine is never fun, because my parents turned that idea down vehemently, I hear. No one's gonna push them out of their own home, let alone their master bedroom. The post was only up for a couple of days before sister-in-law removed it, and she has hardly posted anything since then. She loves to complain, but if a tree falls and no one is around to hear it, can it still complain? Sister-in-law, I guess, has realized there's no point in doing it when no one hears her anymore, and Dan can't afford to move his family out on his salary alone anytime soon. If they end up expecting another child in the next few years, I won't be surprised. Things mellowed down for me since then, and I've been invited friends over for a poker night. I suck at poker because I can never remember a damn thing about it. But so what? We get to drink beer and eat junk food while being merry idiots. We all loaded up on Whoppers from Burger King and just had it at the best way a grown man can when they just want to have a good unadulterated time and get pissed drunk. I think maybe around summer I'll look into possibly dating someone. I'm not exactly getting younger here. Fingers crossed that goes well. My camper just sits idle in my yard now. I admit there were some days I went out there just to spend time in it. I did live in it for 2 years, so it's like my second home. And maybe one day I'll actually get to use it for camping, like it was meant to be. I've never been camping. My parents considered it a waste of time, so it would be a completely new experience for me. This pretty much marks the end of what happened. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law have all been staying very clear of me. In fact, they all seem to have gone back to acting like I don't exist, like they did before I bought a house. Not like that bothers me at all. It's better that way. But they'll inevitably come back in some way. I know they will. I just wonder what kind of stupid thing they'll do next. If anything notable like this happens again, I'll make another post if this account is still active. That's the end of today's video. I hope you will enjoy these stories. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and hit that notification bell. I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.